Right then, for this deep dive, we're turning our attention to Apollo 16.
Ah, yes, the 10th crewed mission.
And the 5th landing. Crucially, it was the second of those extended J missions, wasn't it? With a real focus on the science.
Exactly. Extended surface stay, the rover, and, well, poignantly, the second to last trip to the moon.
Indeed. So our aim today is to really dig into Apollo 16. We've got our notes, historical accounts. We want to cover the goals, the errors, the hitches along the way, and what it ultimately told us.
Precisely. It's a mission with quite a story. Not everything went exactly to plan.
No, it certainly didn't. The main target was the Descartes Highlands. Now, the initial thinking, scientifically speaking, was that this could be a volcanic area.
That was the hypothesis going in. A chance perhaps to sample volcanic rocks, understand that aspect of lunar geology.
Which sounds fascinating, but as we'll get into, that idea was really put to the test.
And ultimately, well, it didn't hold up, did it? The mission itself disproved the very reason for choosing that landing site, in a way.
Quite. It really shows that interplay between theory and, well, ground truth.
Absolutely. The crew for this one, quite a mix.
Yes, Commander John Young, a real veteran Gemini, Apollo 10.
He'd been to the moon before, orbited on 10. Invaluable experience.
Then Ken Mattingly, command module pilot, his first flight, though he was famously bumped from Apollo 13.
Yes, due to that measles scare that never actually materialized for him, so this was his chance.
And finally, Charles Duke, the lunar module pilot, his only space flight.
And the youngest person at that time to walk on the moon. He was 36.
A blend of seasoned hands and our first-timers beyond Earth orbit.
A very capable crew. Launch was April 16th, 1972, Kennedy Space Center.
Liftoff itself seemed pretty nominal, didn't it?
Yes, the Saturn V did his job beautifully, as usual. The initial part went smoothly.
But the journey out, that's where things started to get, shall we say, interesting.
A few minor things cropped up first.
Little things, yes. A potential niggle with the environmental control system. And something about the SIVB stage, the third stage, not holding its attitude quite right.
Minor issues, logged and worked around, but reminders that these are incredibly complex machines.
Definitely keeps you on your toes. But then came the major drama.
Ah, the main engine, the SPS Service Propulsion System.
Exactly. As they were getting ready for the burn to put them into the right orbit for landing, Mattingly spotted something.
He did. Oscillations, wasn't it? In the backup gimbal system for the engine.
Which sounds technical, but essentially it meant there was a potential problem with controlling the direction of the engine's thrust.
And that's absolutely critical, especially for the descent orbit insertion burn, and even more so for getting home.
This wasn't just a minor flicker on a gauge either. It was serious. The mission rules were quite clear.
Under normal circumstances, that sort of issue would mean scrubbing the landing immediately. Redock the LM and CSM.
Because if the main engine on the service module was unreliable, you might need the lunar module's engine to get back to Earth. Safety first.
Absolutely. It got so serious, didn't it, that managers back in Houston were actively considering aborting the landing altogether.
Imagine that. Getting all the way there, the moon, right outside the window, and being told to turn around and come home.
The tension in mission control must have been palpable. Hours of analysis followed.
So you had Young and Duke in the LM Orion and Mattingly in the CSM Casper, just waiting, flying in formation.
While Houston pored over the data, running simulations, trying to understand exactly what was happening and if it was safe to proceed.
It really highlights how vital that ground support was. They had to diagnose this from, 250,000 miles away.
Eventually, after I think about 6 hours.
Yes, a nail-biting 6 hours. They decided they understood the problem well enough, it was related to the backup system, and they figured out a way to work around it using the primary system.
So the landing was back on, but with a significant delay.
And that delay had consequences down the line, didn't it?
It did. They had to shorten the overall mission by 1 day.
And the final moonwalk, EVA-3, had its duration trimmed as well to fit everything in.
A necessary adjustment, but it meant slightly less time on the surface than originally planned.
Right. So fast forward to April 21st, 1972. After all that, Young and Duke finally brought Orion down into the Descartes Highlands.
They landed a little bit off target, didn't they? A few hundred meters away from the planned spot.
Yes, but with the lunar rover, that wasn't really a major issue. They could easily drive over.
The LRV really gave them that flexibility, made pinpoint landings less critical than on earlier missions.
And Young's first words on stepping out?
Well,
quite memorable.
Mysterious and unknown Descartes. Highland Plains. Apollo 16 is going to change your image. Something about Brer Rabbit in the briar patch.
That's the one. Classic John Young understatement, perhaps. Duke, meanwhile, 10th person on the moon, youngest at the time. He was a bit more...
Exuberant. Understandably so. An incredible moment for him.
Their first job, get the rover out. And wouldn't you know it, another little glitch.
The rear steering wasn't working initially, was it?
No. But thankfully, while they were getting the TV camera set up to film the ALSEP deployment, it just started working.
One of those fortunate self-corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Could have hampered the traverses otherwise.
Indeed. Then, deploying the ALSEP, the Apollo Lunar Surface Experiments package.
A standard part of the J missions. Setting up experiments to run long after they left.
We're talking the seismometers, passive and active.
Heat flow experiment, magnetometer, collecting that long-term data about the moon's interior and environment.
Crucial baseline science, even if not directly testing the volcanic idea at that point.
Right, so EVA-1, first moonwalk, they drove off towards Plum Crater and Buster Crater.
At Plum, they were sampling what they thought was the Cayley Formation. This was a key geological unit they wanted to investigate.
And that's where Duke found.
Big Muley, what a name, an enormous piece of moon rock, almost 12 kilograms.
The largest single rock brought back by any Apollo mission. A fantastic sample.
Gave the scientists back home a huge amount of material to study, really helped understand the crust in that area.
Then on to Buster Crater. Duke took photos of Stone Mountain, South Ray Crater. Young set up the portable magnetometer.
And even this early on, the geologists listening in were noting something. Or rather, the lack of something.
No obvious volcanic rocks. Lots of breccias impact-related rocks, but nothing that screamed volcanic origin.
The first hints that the pre-mission hypothesis might be, well, wrong.
Exactly. The ground truth was already starting to diverge from the orbital interpretation.
And didn't Young do his Grand Prix run in the rover around then?
Ah, yes. Putting the LRV through its paces. Bit of fun, captured by Duke on camera. Showed off the rover's capabilities, though.
Absolutely. That mobility was key. Which brings us to EVA-2, Stone Mountain.
Their main goal was to drive up the side of Stone Mountain.
And they reached quite an altitude, didn't they? Highest point relative to the LM on any mission.
But 150 meters up allowed them to sample different layers, different heights on the slope, trying to find Descartes material specifically.
They stopped at several stations. Station 6, a blocky crater, hoping to get more Cayley Formation samples.
Station 8, sampling material thrown out from South Ray Crater. Lots of breccias again. Some plagioclase-rich rocks.
And Station 9, the vacant lot, called that because they hoped it was clear of the South Ray ejecta.
Trying to get pristine local material. They also collected a double core sample near the ALSEP site. A busy EVA.
Very productive. Lots of driving, lots of sampling on those slopes.
But still, no definitive volcanic rocks turning up. The picture was becoming clearer.
Which leads us to EVA-3, the final moonwalk, and they went big.
North Ray Crater. An enormous feature. A kilometer across, maybe 230 meters deep.
The largest crater visited by any Apollo crew. Must have been an incredible sight.
Absolutely stunning, I imagine. And scientifically important, offering a glimpse into deeper, possibly older layers.
They photographed it extensively and examined house rock.
A huge boulder near the rim. And this was really significant, wasn't it?
Yes, because it was covered in tiny impact pits from micrometeoroids, not something you'd typically expect on a fresh volcanic rock.
Exactly. It strongly suggested the rock had been sitting there, exposed to space, for a very long time. More evidence against recent volcanism.
They also sampled some soil from a permanently shadowed area near Shadow Rock. Interesting from a sort of volatiles perspective.
Potentially trapping water ice, although analysis later didn't find significant amounts there. And they set an unofficial speed record.
Ah, yes. Downhill in the rover, over 17 kilometers an hour. Must have felt like flying.
A bit daring, perhaps. And Duke left a family photo on the surface, too.
A lovely personal touch. And an Air Force medallion. Little human moments amidst the geology.
Then, finally, they parked the rover at the VIP site.
Positioned so its camera could watch them lift off. A final task before heading back inside Orion for the last time.
A fitting end to their surface exploration.
Meanwhile, all this time, Ken Mattingly was orbiting Solo and Casper.
For about 126 hours, completing 64 orbits. A long time to be alone up there.
But he wasn't idle. He was running the big science instruments in the SimBay.
The Scientific Instrument Module, packed with cameras and sensors. Panoramic camera, mapping camera, mass spectrometer, laser altimeter.
But, it wasn't all plain sailing for him either, was it? Quite a few instrument problems.
No, several malfunctions occurred. These were complex, cutting-edge instruments, remember.
The PanCam had power drain issues, maybe linked to heaters, and quite a few photos were overexposed.
Though it did manage to capture that amazing image of Orion sitting on the surface down in the Descartes region.
Incredible shot. The mass spectrometer boom didn't retract properly at first.
Then it got stuck later and had to be jettisoned before they left lunar orbit.
The mapping camera had issues with a glare shield, also overexposed images, and the laser altimeter, well, its accuracy degraded and it eventually failed.
So a real mixed bag with the orbital science instruments. Frustrating for Mattingly and the teams back on Earth.
Definitely. But despite all that, he still gathered a lot of useful data and visual observations.
His own observations, using binoculars even, were quite important. He noted the landing area looked geologically, well, unremarkable from orbit, which fed into the post-mission rethink.
A testament to his skill, working around the problems. Okay, so Young and Duke lift off from the moon.
Rendezvous and docking with Casper went smoothly.
They transferred all the rock boxes, the samples, across to the command module. A precious cargo.
Then it was time to jettison the LM ascent stage, Orion. Its job was done.
The plan was to deliberately crash it into the moon to give the seismologists a known impact signal.
But something went wrong. It started tumbling after release. Likely a switch left in the wrong position.
They lost control. So no controlled impact. It eventually crashed almost a year later, but randomly.
A lost opportunity for the seismic network, unfortunately. One of those small errors with consequences.
Then there was the subsatellite deployment, PFS-2.
Particles and field subsatellite. Because the mission was shortened, they had to release it into a lower orbit than planned.
And that lower orbit wasn't stable, thanks to the moon's lumpy gravity. The Mascons.
Exactly. The Mascons pulled it down, and it only lasted about a month before impacting. Another casualty of that initial engine problem, really.
Right. So lunar orbit operations complete. Time to head home.
The big one. The trans-Earth injection burn. Using that main SPS engine again.
Must have been a slightly nervous moment, given the earlier issues.
I imagine so. But it performed perfectly. Fired exactly as planned to send them back towards Earth.
Phew. But the excitement wasn't quite over, especially for Mattingly.
No, he had his deep space EVA to perform.
Extraordinary. An 83-minute spacewalk way out in the void between the moon and Earth to retrieve the film cassettes from the sim bay.
With Duke assisting him from the hatch. Only the second time such an EVA had been done.
Whoa.
A long way from anywhere.
Must have been an incredible experience, just floating out there.
And retrieving that film was vital. All those images from the panoramic and mapping cameras.
During the spacewalk, he also deployed another experiment unique to Apollo 16.
The Meade experiment, yes. Microbial ecology evaluation device. Studying how microbes survive in deep space.
A little bit of biology added to the mix.
After that, the rest of the trip home was fairly routine.
A final course correction burn, then separation from the service module.
And the fiery re-entry through Earth's atmosphere in Casper.
Splashdown in the Pacific, April 27th, 1972. Recovery by the USS Ticonderoga. Crew safe.
Mission complete in terms of getting the crew and samples back. But the scientific analysis was just beginning.
And that analysis delivered the mission's biggest surprise, didn't it?
Absolutely. The rocks, especially from the Cayley Formation, were definitively not volcanic. They were impact breccias, mostly.
Completely overturning the primary reason for going to Descartes in the first place.
Precisely. The Descartes Formation itself seems similar. No signs of volcanism there either, though its origin was perhaps less clear-cut immediately.
It forced a major rethink among lunar geologists. Realization that maybe they'd relied too much on Earth analogies.
The idea of volcanic mountains on the moon largely faded away after Apollo 16. Mattingly's orbital view that it looked unremarkable seemed spot on in hindsight.
It really showed the value of getting boots or wheels on the ground. You can't beat direct sampling and observation.
The moon had its own story, different from Earth's, and missions like 16 were essential to deciphering it.
There were other findings too, weren't there? The discovery of new auroral belts around Earth.
Yes, data from the orbital instruments revealed those. An unexpected bonus, learning more about our own planet's magnetosphere.
Shows how interconnected space science is. After the mission. Well, Young and Mattingly flew the shuttle.
Young commanded the very first space shuttle mission, STS-1. Mattingly flew later shuttle missions, too. Duke retired from NASA a few years after Apollo 16.
And Casper, the command module, is on display, isn't it?
Yes, at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. You can go and see it.
And that odd discovery, years later, of a piece of the Saturn V first stage in North Carolina.
Quite amazing. Shows the power involved and that bits can travel a long way.
So summing up Apollo 16, It was a mission that faced significant technical hurdles right at the start.
Definitely. That SPS engine issue could have ended the landing before it began.
But they overcame it. They explored the Descartes Highlands extensively with the rover, brought back a huge haul of samples.
Over 95 kilograms of rocks and soil. A massive scientific return in terms of material.
And perhaps most importantly, it fundamentally changed our understanding of lunar geology. Disproved that volcanic hypothesis for the site.
A classic example of science in action. A hypothesis tested and found wanting based on the evidence gathered.
It really stands as a success, despite the engine problems, the instrument issues. Testament to the adaptability of everyone involved.
Crew and mission control working together to salvage the mission and achieve remarkable things.
And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? That experience of Apollo 16 having your core assumptions overturned. What does that tell us about exploring other places?
It's a crucial lesson. We have theories about Mars, about Europa, about asteroids, based on remote data and analogy, but we have to be prepared for surprises when we actually get there.
We might find things we completely didn't expect. Our Earth-based ideas might just be wrong. Again,
It highlights the absolute value of direct exploration, whether robotic or human. There's no substitute for being there, for analyzing materials in situ or bringing them back. Our current understanding always has limitations.
a provocative thought indeed. We think we know, but maybe we don't. We need to go and find out.
Exactly. The potential for discovery, for having our ideas challenged, is immense. That's the heart of exploration.
Well, for anyone wanting to dig deeper into Apollo 16, there's a wealth of information out there. NASA archives, scientific papers.
It's a mission well worth revisiting, full of challenges, ingenuity, and fascinating science.
Absolutely. Until our next deep dive then, keep exploring.